First Passion TV, your favorite.
My name is Robert Chirenga, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda, an organization that looks into the interests and needs of human rights defenders. The work of human rights defenders is not an easy one. They face all sorts of threats from both state and non-state actors, and when they are under threat or attack, the organization that comes to their rescue is the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda, which is situated at Plot 148, Semwata Road in Tinda Trading Center.
Sharon viewers, welcome to yet an amazingly touching, educative, and yet entertaining TV show, Mysterious Me, with me, your girl, Sharon. So today in studios, I'm not alone. Of course, as you know, Mysterious Me, we come over here and we discuss issues that are meant to help you as a student out there, and you, of course, the parents are involved in this. If it comes to your children, we bring it to you all in package. So today I have a gentleman in studio. He is going to introduce himself to us, and then we shall proceed. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Sharon. My name is Robert Chirenga, and I happen to be a team leader at a civil society organization called the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda.
Okay, as you have heard it, he is one of those that are here to give us information about the Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, not so? Okay, so briefly, who is Mr. Robert?
Thank you, Sharon. Chirenga is a human rights activist,
okay,
who has been in the human rights arena for the last 25 years. Having started my human rights career with the National Human Rights Institution in Uganda called the Uganda Human Rights Commission,
okay,
and later on worked in other countries in the same area of human rights in Somalia and in Zimbabwe, and now back to Uganda. So the coalition is a network of human rights defenders in the country, composed of about 150 organizations and individuals whose work is basically to protect and promote human rights using non-violence.
Okay.
And we were established in May 2013 as a result of the state's handling of human rights defenders. There was a movement here called the Black Monday Movement, where human rights activists and civil society organizations were protesting against the rampant corruption. So every Monday we were urged to dress in black.
Okay.
And that black signified that we are tired of this rampant corruption, because rampant corruption has an effect on human rights. And therefore, when civil society leaders then did that, the way the state handled them caused them to think of setting up a structure or an institution that would come to their rescue when they are when the state responded, it arrested those leaders.
Okay.
And when they arrested them, there was no one to go and defend them in the courts of law because they were ambushed. And therefore they said, we need to set up an organization that will be coming to the rescue of human rights defenders when they are under threat or attack. In other words, when they arrest you, somebody should be ready to go and seek for police bond. When you are taken in court, there should be lawyers to apply for bail or even to represent you through the due process. And therefore that's how they came up with founding this national coalition. So it was founded by about 8 organizations, big NGO organizations, including the Uganda Law Society.
Okay.
And that's how we've been functioning since then.
Wow, that is wonderful. So our viewer today would love to know who a human rights defender is.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. So a human rights defender is any individual or citizen whose activities or action contributes to the protection and promotion of human rights.
So anyone can be a human rights defender?
Even a peasant farmer. What defines you are those actions that you do using peaceful means, but will lead to either protection or promotion of human rights. I'll give you an example. If Sharon sees someone's rights being trampled upon, either being violated or abused, and she picks interest and confronts the other person, why are you doing ABCD to this person? That means you are now trying to protect or to speak out on the rights of this person. That action qualifies you to be a human rights defender, because you've got out of your way to to speak out, to interrogate why is this person being subjected to this kind of treatment. That qualifies you. It's your actions that qualifies you, not your qualifications, not your action. But of course there are people whose jobs, by nature of their jobs, are automatically human rights defenders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get. So that means everyone watching us out there can turn out to be a human rights defender.
Very much so.
So long as their actions are positive.
Are positive and are non-violent.
Okay.
Is the issue that you have picked concern about another citizen's fate, and you say what, or even in society. For example, if service delivery is poor, if there's rampant corruption, if you think the way the security personnel are handling citizens, even in a family, if you have a parent who's abusing the rights of the child, he beats up the child, or you have couples who are fighting and you come out and say, no, what you're doing is bad, domestic violence, and you speak out. And you try to reach out to the police to tell, look, in this home, there is a lot of serious human rights abuses happening between either the parent and the child, or between parents. That action of getting out and intervening and speaking and going to the police to report through the child and family child and protection unit, that makes you a human rights defender.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what basically connects you to this kind of organization? What motivated you into becoming a human rights defender?
It is my past work experiences and what I also observed happening in our societies.
Okay.
Initially, I would be lying to you to say that I had a passion for human rights before joining this organization. But joining this organization, especially the Human Rights Commission, where we used to visit detention places, where we used to go to northern Uganda during the time of insurgents, when LRA was still active in northern Uganda, going to visit people in internally displaced camps, is when you see the kind of suffering and the kind of bad conditions that citizens were facing, that you really get to know that you need to do something. So human rights basically is about speaking out. If you don't speak out when you see things, injustices happening, then really you're playing your part as a human rights defender. So it's my experiences both at the workplace and in the field that inspired me to really continue doing this work, and that's what I've been doing in the last 27 years.
Wow,
yeah.
27. Okay, I'm going to take you back in time. Let us go to your high school and maybe campus level. Are there some scenarios that you used to watch, and if you would take back time, because currently you are now a human rights defender, you can do something to help the vulnerable. So are there scenarios that used to happen way back to students, and you feel like if you could go back, you would have helped them in some way?
Yes. Normally, students have grievances, and it is characteristic of administrators to dismiss those kind of grievances.
Yes.
I think at that time and I was also a student leader at one time.
Okay.
I think it's important to listen to students. Oftentimes, these power relations between a head teacher or the head of an institution of a higher learning, let's say the vice chancellor, that is the student leadership. Sometimes the power relationships created are such that the leadership at the university may not want to treat these as equal partners in terms of these debates. Therefore, if you don't listen to the students and you cut them off, you don't give them a platform where to air their grievances and even try to give you solutions. Say, in our view, this is how we think we can handle either online learning or these are the challenges. In other words, providing solutions to the problem that you want, the grievances that you want them addressed. Then you create a situation where they get out of hand. And sometimes when you don't listen to them, they use all sorts of media to attract any other outsiders, meaning either government structures, to come and intervene in this problem, where otherwise you would have sorted it out together. So it's important to be a good listener and also to be able to address these challenges by giving these students audience. And then you communicate and listen to what they're telling you and say, this is what can be done, and this is what cannot be done under the circumstances. But not to dismiss them as asking for too much. But also, students have a responsibility. I remember during our times in Makere, there used to be strikes. The unfortunate bit of strikes, while you have a right to peaceful protest, you do not have a right to destroy public property.
Okay.
So students at times would get out of, they would become so rowdy, one blocking a road, burning tires. That is unacceptable and criminal. The best you can do is to sit down and have a peaceful, you sit in Freedom Square, if I were to give an example, and say we're not going to attend lessons until this is done. But you do not go to destroy public property. You do not block roads. You do not attack people's properties. You do not get out of the gate and vandalize roadside sellers' property and loot their things. That's criminal and it's not acceptable. So students, as they demand for their rights, they should also know that they have corresponding responsibilities or duties to protect public property, to respect the rights of other citizens who have nothing to do with their grievances.
Okay. So, Mr. Robert, we are discussing, we're talking about rights. Most of the students out there do not know what their rights are. What are our rights as students?
The rights that students are the same rights any other human being is entitled to.
Okay.
And rights can be categorized into three. We have what we call civil political rights. These are freedom to assemble, freedom of participation, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the media, freedom to participate in the political affairs of your country, to stand for elections and to be elected. You have freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of association.
Okay.
You have freedom of expression, as I had indicated. Those are civil political rights, liberties. And then we have what we call socio-economic rights. Socio-economic rights have to do with the well-being, the right to health, the right to food, the right to education,
Okay.
the right to decent living or housing and accommodation. All those are what we call socio-economic rights. They have to do with the well-being, the social well-being of a person. Those are the ones we call socio-economic rights.
Okay.
And then there are those rights we call the group rights. We enjoy them as a group. The right to a health, clean environment. That the air we all breathe, we breathe it as a group.
As a group, yeah.
So it should be clean, healthy. And then the right to development. Then there's also what they call the right to self-determination. If a group is still under colonial domination, they have the right to self-determination. The most recent country that exercised the right to self-determination is South Sudan, that broke away from Sudan and became independent.
Okay.
Those are enjoyed as a group. So there are three categories: civil political liberties, socio-economic rights, and group rights.
I've learned something. Thank you so much, Mr. Robert. So my next question would be, what kind of support do you mainly provide to the vulnerable?
The vulnerable.
Yeah.
So our institution basically looks at human rights defenders, the ones I defined. But the work of human rights defenders, as I told you, is very risky. When you are speaking out on human rights issues, you tend to step on other people's toes. And those people would challenge you. They feel they are too powerful and nobody, you should not, they always ask you, where do you derive the authority to question what I'm doing? So because of this, human rights defenders face many risks. They are arrested, they are physically manhandled, they are tortured, they are abused and called all sorts of names. And therefore, because of this challenging work that they do and the threats they face, we as a coalition provide them support. Support in terms of protection. All our energies are aimed at protecting the human rights defender so that he can continuously do his or her work of protecting and defending human rights. So the support ranges from the kind of threat you are facing. If Sharon tells me, look, I've been arrested, or I get information that Sharon has been arrested as a result of the work she's been talking about women's rights, or the girl child, or talking about corruption and how it has affected human rights realization, the lack of drugs in hospitals. And because of that work she's doing, she has been arrested and they have charged her over certain flimsy charges, then I'll get a lawyer to represent you. In case you have been detained in the police, we'll see how we can get a lawyer to apply for police bond and ensure that you get sureties. We'll stand for you whether at the police bond or at the level of the court bail.
Okay.
What if Sharon has been beaten, tortured, or whatever? We'll try to get medical treatment for her. We'll get psychosocial support for her so that she can overcome this trauma and be able to get back on her feet and do her work. Sharon can also tell us, look, they have threatened me. They say they know where I live. And they've even showed me they know the address. And we can, as a last resort, relocate you from that address, take you somewhere until, for a period, it's a temporary location, so that these challenges can come down and then you can be able to get back on your feet and work.
Okay, in the same manner, to do with the very same question, I'm going to ask, the challenges you just mentioned are majorly, according to me, the challenges faced by the defenders themselves.
Please.
Now, this is a coalition.
Yes, please.
That means you house those people, you house the defenders. What are these major challenges that you face as a coalition?
As a coalition, of course, right now, as an organization, you know that one of our funders, a framework called the Democratic Governance Facility, was suspended by the government just after, within the election period in February this last year. Okay. So the money that they were giving us to do these activities is no longer there. Oh. Two, we are getting very many restrictions coming in from different government agencies. And therefore, our space to do our work is being narrowed. It's not easy for me to do the work I used to do 10 years back ago. So the space is shrinking. Shrinking from a legal perspective. In others, the laws that are being passed today are not enabling us, but are hindering the work that we do.
They are no longer in favor
of civic organizations like ours as a coalition to be able to do its work. Would have expected government to come up with laws and policies that support the work that human rights defenders
There could be something behind. Is there some sort of a myth or a belief against the organization to do with human rights?
Yes, I think some of our politicians are against having an empowered citizenry.
Okay.
An empowered citizenry, Sharon, cannot be manipulated. If student leaders, right now, you know that our democratic dividend is in favor of young people, the youth. If you empower young people to know their rights and they demand and defend them, then it becomes very difficult for the leaders to manipulate you. You will be always challenging them. And therefore, some people don't like that. They want a dormant society, a society that relies on handouts. They give you money and you keep quiet, even when you see service delivery is poor. So our work really raises the citizens to wake up.
And
demand for their rights.
And
And not everyone likes that. So they prefer a docile, a society that relies on handouts, like students, youth, manipulation.
You've been raped? Okay. Keep quiet.
Keep quiet. Something, instead of you speaking out and defending other people, you keep quiet. And yet you are the majority who are going to take over this country at one time. So how prepared are you if you are not empowered to know your rights, demand them, and defend them? So some of our leaders do not like this kind of work we are doing, and therefore would prefer to tighten the knots and make sure that we do not raise a population that is empowered and is able to demand for their rights and demand for accountability from state actors.
My next question would be, who are the people to implement this? But according to your explanation, I've really lost the guts to say it, but still I will ask, who are the people to implement this? Is this all about the human rights defenders? Is it all about me, my parent? Who? Is it the government?
It is everybody's responsibility, but the primary responsibility lies on the state.
Okay.
Because the state has the obligation to respect your rights and my rights. What does it mean to the obligation to respect? It means that the state shall not interfere with the enjoyment of your rights as Sharon, and also the enjoyment of the rights of the coalition to be able to do its work. Because Article 38 of the Constitution says that every citizen has a right to participate in the governance affairs of his country, including through civic organizations like ours.
Okay.
So the state also has an obligation to protect. The obligation to protect means that the state shall protect you from any other third party who would want to infringe or violate or abuse your rights. So, Sharon, if I attempt to abuse your rights, you should be able to go to the police and come, and the police should be able to protect you. That's what it means, the obligation to protect. Then obligation to fulfill means that the state or our government should be able to put in an enabling environment for you and me to enjoy our rights. And the obligation to fulfill extends to the obligation to provide. That Sharon should never be hungry and die of hunger when you have a government. Especially if she's vulnerable, she has no job, she has no source of income, she should not die of hunger, she should not fail to get medical treatment. It is the state's duty to provide. So to answer your question, who should be doing this? It's all of us. The Constitution mandates or obliges all of us to protect and promote her. But the primary responsibility is on the state.
Okay, I've gotten that right. So just as it is from a little theory that you have just given us, that your paths are being narrowed as a coalition,
space.
Yeah, the space.
And civic organizations to be able to do our work.
So now the question would be, who is supposed to help a student? Where is the student supposed to run to when they are violated? Because to give you an example, it is not that every student will be raped and they will run straight to the police. We all know that human rights organizations have psychologists. They have people that are social that can easily chip in and do something, and so that by the time this whole information is taken to the police, at least there is some change. So where should the student run to? And let's also look at a typical student down there in the village. They do not have a police station in a whole center. You know, they will have to go to the next village to find a police station or to find a social worker. Is there any way you think these children can be helped?
I think all of us as citizens have a responsibility to protect the child.
Okay.
So even where there are no facilities like police posts, I think every citizen who comes across such a case should be able to get out of his hand and provide support to this child, either by transporting. The local leadership should be able to come out and say, how do we support this child who has been affected by this kind of challenge? You can't sit back and say it's not your responsibility. It is your responsibility to protect any other citizen you see with it. And what does it mean? It means reaching out, providing all the necessary support as a community, because the child belongs to a community.
Yeah, true.
So you need to see how you can sacrifice your time, your resources, and take this child where you think he or she will be protected or will be catered for, even where there are no such institutions. That means getting out of your way and trying to see how best can we help this child. Of course, there are other organizations beyond the police that can provide this kind of psychosocial support. The whole thing is that, do we know where they are? How do we reach out to them? And then we see how you can support it. It's a collective effort. Yeah. You can't relieve everything to government.
Sure.
But the primary responsibility, and that's where we now have to question government's priorities in terms of the health sector. During this COVID pandemic, how are we going to help those children who were abused, those students who had difficulties in learning? Because now those are the vulnerable. That's where you put resources. We have what we call a human rights-based approach to development planning. Okay. It says that when you are going to allocate the little resources you have, whether it's even money, you first map up the population and say, who are those who are most affected? Who are the most poor here? Who are finding it even difficult to have 3 meals a day? That's where you target your resources.
Even 1 meal, actually.
Yes. So you put it to those ones who are in dire need, not to those who already have.
Okay. It is still an amazing moment with Mr. Robert here, and we are still going on with our conversation. I hope you, as a student out there, you're picking something. I hope you now know what your rights are, where you're supposed to go, and what exactly you're meant to do as a student, as a child out there that belongs to a given mother, to be able to fight for yourself. So, Mr. Robert, talking about running to seek help here and there is a common problem. I think it is everywhere, and that is to do with corruption.
Yeah.
I know you're very certain that most of the scenarios that happen don't happen simply because we have not reported. A girl is raped out there and she tries to reach out to maybe an uncle, yeah, and then uncle sits on the information simply because he has been given something by the defiler or the rapist. And sometimes even when you go to the police, most of these people go and report to the police, but then they're like, okay, we shall look into the matter, and then the matter is actually taken into the bin. They put all the information they pretended to be writing into the bin. What measures have you put as a coalition for human rights defenders to fight for such people that are going through such hardships?
I think human rights defenders who work in that category of children's rights and the girl child have often done their part of speaking out about these injustices that are happening to a girl child, especially where even parents decide to settle it with the other side and leave it out of court or out of police. What human rights defenders basically do is to continuously speak out against the corruption, because that's all that we can do. We have no powers to arrest these people or prosecute them. Of course, they can be private prosecution, but oftentimes the elements to do with the criminal crimes are in the preserve of the office of the DPP. But the best that the human rights defender is to speak out against police corruption, against all these other institutions that are, and also to provide that support to this victim. Of course, the victim has to be protected in terms of her psychology, the psychiatry, so that she's not traumatized more. You do not do more harm when you are dealing with that case, but to ensure that you really knock on the doors of those institutions that are supposed to be doing what they're supposed by demanding for accountability, because you know that these are, and then of course taking them to social workers to be able to counsel them and provide that service. Human rights defenders have a limited role sometimes when it comes to providing the material support that this girl child might require, but rather than speak out and demand for accountability from these duty bearers.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask you some question for some reason. What is your former school, high school?
My former high school is St. Leo's College, Chegove, in Kabarole district.
Wow, you studied from far.
Yes.
Kabarole.
But I also studied from some other secondary schools. But that's why I finalized my O and A level.
Let's have the other schools.
Yes, Namirango College.
Namirango College.
Yes.
Okay. He is a proud OB of Namirango College. I hope Namirango College colleagues, you are tuned in and you are really watching your OB speak out. He's really a big man and he's here to tell us more. So I'm going to ask you another question about role models. Do you think role models have really done something to contribute to defense? And who is your role model?
My role model is any citizen who I see come out to speak about injustices.
Oh, wow.
Those are my role models.
Okay.
Any person who has the courage to talk about the social injustice is a role model to me. That you do not sit down and see things getting bad and you say, it's none of my business. Anyone, whether it's even a child, whether it's a student who speaks out, who comes out to defend others who are under threat or attack, becomes my role model.
Okay. All right, then any word or two to the student watching?
Yes. Students, I can't call you the future leaders. You are the leaders of our country and society today, even if you may not have the authority or the power to do certain things. But the fact that you constitute 80% of our population, the country is in your hands. It is important, one, to know your rights, responsibilities, and duties, and make sure that you take advantage of any existing opportunity to excel in your studies and be able to know what you want to do in the next years to come. And of course, to always be a disciplined citizen or student. Discipline is the first core value I would tell a student to have. Never to take the law into your hands. Do what took you to school. You went to study. You can also do other extracurricular activities, but know that the major duty that took you is to
Study.
excel, and be a responsible citizen when you get out of school.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Robert. But still, to the suffering or to the vulnerable student out there that is watching us on Passion TV, they would love to know, how do they get to you as the organization? How can they reach to you in case they are facing some hardships?
Well, we as an organization are situated in Tinda along Semawata Road. That's plot 148. If you go to our website, or if you just go to Google and put on and just type in National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, all the details and our numbers and our contacts are available there for any student leader who might want to make use of our services. Just go on to Google, put in National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. It will give you the website. On our website, you get all the information that you require. We are now in a digital world. You should be able to use those kind of facilities or platforms.
Yes, you're right. Okay, to all our viewers still viewing into Passion TV, we are still continuing with our favorite show, and that is Mysterious Me with me, your girl, Sharon. In studios, as I already told you, we have Mr. Robert here, and he is the executive director for the Coalition of Human Rights Uganda. So, sir, we are getting down with the show, and we are yet to say bye-bye to our viewers. And I think you have one or two words to the viewers, to the
Thank you very much,
parents in
Sharon.
particular.
Both parents and students, I think we should all be defenders of each other. If you see someone's rights are being abused or violated, do not keep quiet and say, that's none of my business. Be able to reach out. Of course, your safety is important. I'm not saying you should be able to confront them physically, but you should be able to speak out or even report such matters. Play your part as a citizen. You have a duty to protect your fellow citizens. If you see evils like corruption which are affecting our country, you should be able to speak out to them and ensure that we have a better country.
Okay, we all know that it starts with you. So that has been Mr. Robert for you, the executive director for the Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda. Okay, that has been that, and that is it for our show today. But for you, the viewers, remember, if you are going through any sort of hardship, be it rape, be it defilement, are you going through? Have you been denied education? What are you facing today? We are here to help you as Passion TV and majorly as Mysterious Me program. We have a lot in stock for you. We have a lot organized for you so that you can keep pushing in life. When you listen to Mysterious Me or watch us here on Passion TV, you'll have a reason to push harder even when you feel you can no longer go any other extra mile. Even a journey of one step begins with a single step. I will allow Mr. Robert to say bye-bye to us, and then we shall wrap up the show.
Thank you very much, Sharon. It was a pleasure joining Passion. I enjoy your work, and I look forward to further engagements with you as you continue to promote the rights of students and the youth in this country. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. It has been a pleasure hosting you today on Passion TV. Please come again.
Thank you, and thank you to you, our viewers on Passion TV.
Okay, thank you so much for keeping it Passion TV. Thank you for giving us your precious time. There is a lot in stock. It has been me, your girl, Sharon, with Mysterious Me. Keep it locked. See you next time.
Passion TV, your favorite.